Welcome to the second episode of the PTS podcast, where the Poulters Talk Sports. My name is Paul, joined as always by my brother Daniel. And on today's docket, we've got the entirety of the first round of the NBA playoffs, including, and more specifically, talking about the teams that have now been eliminated. And at the end of the episode, as always, we'll take a trip to the bar. First on the list, the Los Angeles Lakers. Defeated in a gentleman's sweep 4-1 by the defending champion, Denver Nuggets. What did you think about the series? Where do you think the Lakers go from here?
It's such a strange series because I had no just like I always thought that the Lakers were going to lose. But I didn't expect the Nuggets to kind of look wishy-washy, which now with them against Minnesota is looking a little dicey. The Nuggets are finally figuring out, oh, this is actually difficult to do. And you're like, okay, come on, Nuggets, you can figure it out. But the Lakers have kind of been a cluster all season. They won the in-season tournament.
I forgot
raised
about
the banners. Raised those
I forgot
banners.
about that.
They've already fired their coach, which was a given. And now we have the gigantic looming elephant in the room that is, does LeBron James opt out and then just resign? Or is LeBron James going to get tempted by another franchise? And I'm not sure if does that matter anymore? Is that just the thing to sell jerseys? Like, is LeBron going to be...
He's still one of the top 10, 15 best players. You saw that in the playoffs when he really needed to turn it on. He was incredible. I don't think he can give you that for like a regular season anymore, but he can show up. The question is does he opt out in order to play with his son? You know, does he try and play with Bronny like he talked about? And if so, how high does Bronny's draft stock get inflated because a team just wants LeBron? Now, if you look at their pending free agents, as I said, LeBron has a player option for this coming year, and D'Angelo Russell has a player option for this year.
Which I think he has already aggressively hinted at.
He's already...
He will be.
He's going to accept that, yeah. They should have dealt him at the deadline. He was borderline unplayable in the playoffs. He was awful.
He's one of those classic unplayable in the playoffs, but regular season you're like convincing yourself like maybe we can fix him. He'll do it, right? It's like which
is weird.
Just ship him off to somewhere where you don't even have to think about it.
They built his contract perfectly to deal him at the deadline, and then did not deal him at the deadline, and it just never made any sense. And so, and essentially everyone else is a free agent, not named Anthony Davis and Austin Reeves. So now I think this is going to be a theme with teams moving forward that have been eliminated, is having 80% of your cap space in two players just isn't good enough anymore. The league is so deep with talent. You see the Nuggets.
Or three. Most teams are three, and most teams are figuring out that you need 2 stars and a bunch of role players.
And even then, you might want 1 star, 1 pseudo star. Like, think of the Nuggets, right? Jokic is a superstar, obviously. I think he's the best player in the league. And then Jamal Murray, he's not a top 15 guy, but he's good. He's probably top 20, 25. I'd have to obviously list it out. But
that Murray hasn't made an All-Star game because he's so average in the regular season is
he's
hilarious.
Also in the West, right? So he has to deal with trying to get past Steph.
This is correct, but you would think he would have made 1.
Sure, you would think he would have
especially after winning NBA championship. You usually get gifted 2.
Didn't he win? Did he win comeback player of the year too after breaking his leg or whatever he did?
When he got injured.
Yeah. So, Lakers are in a tough spot. They fired their coach as of right now. Rumors are Mike Budenholzer.
There's not a single head coach where I go, yeah, you should go to the Lakers.
Yeah,
it just seems it's like the same thing with the Phoenix Suns, which we'll get to later. But it's like, yes, who wants career suicide by
I would
going to the Suns?
I would never want to coach a LeBron team. No way.
Well, there's only one team that the head coach hasn't been fired that he's been a part of.
Yeah,
and it's Eric Spoelstra, who's a Hall of Fame coach. Like one of the greatest that's ever going to be around.
For Greg Popovich, it's that easy.
Oh, that would be awful. It'd be so bad. But especially when it comes to the Lakers, I just see this. I could legit like. There's no real in between for me for this franchise. Like they're either going to be they're going to make some weird moves and be a top 4 team in the West next year, or LeBron will have left. They'll have nothing, and it'll be Anthony Davis and like the hospital wing, and they'll be like down by Portland.
So it'll be the
And
Pelicans circa 2013, where it was
yes,
Anthony
Anthony
Davis and
Anthony
Fred.
Davis will be back on the
Yeah,
Pelicans basically.
yeah,
Which then becomes the question of does Anthony Davis eventually is he then the trade piece that you send out? But I think he'll sign back because I think
I do
the
too.
Lakers are one of the only desperate is not the right word, but I think they're one of the franchises that they would spend a second round pick on
Oh,
Bronny James.
absolutely. Now the problem
And
is I wouldn't be surprised if because once you get past the lottery, everything's crapshoot. If you're Philadelphia, if you're Oklahoma City, and you've got 70 picks, you just throw one at Bronny James and hope that makes LeBron go to your team. Like,
I think the biggest problem with the Bronny James, and I do feel bad for him
oh, I feel terrible
because
for him.
the kid is one because like can you imagine your dad being like I want to be on a team with all bunch of dudes and then your dad who's 20 years like 18 20 years older than you is just hanging out with the dudes. But he's the dude because
That's
he's
just
LeBron goddamn
weird.
James. And
Um,
here and like here's I've covered Bronny James. First of all, he doesn't do interviews. I
really?
was talking with like I was listening to because I've if people don't know, Bay Area journalist. I do a lot of high school prep work. We all know about Bronny James. He was very coddled at Sierra Canyon.
Yeah.
Um, and the thing is, though, he's not bad. He just needs a lot of seasoning because he's a two guard. He's like a large point guard, two guard, who,
Yeah.
if you gave him 3 years of college development, yeah, he's a first round pick
He's
in 3 years.
he's a defensive stopper, right? Like that's going
He's
to be
a
his calling
defensive
card.
stopper who does not have a three and has some upside athleticism.
I mean, I hate to break it
Which,
to you, if you can't shoot in the NBA, you can't play. Like,
yeah, and it's one of those things where like in an ideal world, he's transferring like in the weird crazy world, Draymond Green convinces LeBron James to go to Golden State or something. Absolutely just like hitting the pipe. Bronny James could just go to Cal, a guy under Madsen, coach, high academic program, turning it around. Cal is a really under like I've gone to interviews at Cal and doing players where there's like 3 members of the media there. Yes, because he's there, it would
probably
be
like 20.
elevated,
Yeah.
but like Cal is a program on the rise. They develop players, high academic, high development with Laker ties.
Yeah.
And if he goes to Golden State, he's right there, so you can still have that like father son thing. But like
I don't know.
Bronny James is, if he is drafted this year, is 100% every team is saying, "We want your dad. We don't give a shit about you.
Which
We
is so
don't care
bad
if you
for the
pan
kid.
out.
Which
We don't
sucks.
care if you do it. You are our uh Giannis's younger brother, like his
You're
brother,
Thanasis. Yeah.
equivalent
Yeah.
to whatever team you go to if they get LeBron. That's all. And the thing is, though, a bunch of teams would probably be like, yeah, maybe, but I like
You know
if
what
it.
team I'd love
The
him
thing is,
on? I would
what's up?
love him to develop on the Spurs. He sits with Greg Popovich. He just learns the system. He learns how to be a professional. He learns how to play point. Like he just, you know what? I think what the Spurs should do, and we'll get to one of these teams that's involved later. They should sign Markel Fultz.
I well, I got another counter for that. I think the Spurs.
Don't trade for Trey Young, please.
No,
Okay.
that's the worst thing they could. Like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, Trey. I'm like,
I hate that.
no.
I hate that.
They should just sign Chris Paul.
Oh, absolutely. I thought that's where he was going to go last year to develop
Yeah,
women.
I'm not sure if Chris Paul would do that, but it's like one of those things where it's just like Chris Paul's smart enough to be like, hey, we got a gigantic dude. Let me throw the gigantic dude the ball.
Yeah.
And he could teach the entire organization's the ropes, because that was the biggest thing for the Spurs. Is just like they need a point guard. The thing is though, they don't need a shooting point guard. I know that's the modern thing, but like
They need a
if you
facilitator.
if you
They
give
need
the Spurs
2010 Ricky Rubio. Like Ricky Rubio, Rajon Rondo, like just
though I'm fully predicting it now. We'll see. The Spurs are gonna get the Duke kid, not this year, but next year,
really.
and him with Victor Wembanyama will run the NBA for the next 15 years.
Sounds like fun. Spurs been bad.
And that's weird to say out of a white boy from Maine.
Yeah.
But trust me, he's really good.
Let's move on from the Lakers. Let's move on to the Clippers. The Clippers, as per usual, stunk in the playoffs. They lost.
Clips being Clippers.
They lost in 6 to the Mavericks. Some Luka magic mixed in with some Kyrie, who's now 13-0 in closeout games, by the way, in his career, which is really weird.
Okay.
But cool. Clippers pending free agents, the big ones. James Harden, free agent, can go wherever he wants. Probably going to go to a strip club. We got Paul George.
That's true.
Who's got a player option. Paul George is going to be the biggest name on the what does he do list for free agency outside of LeBron, where
all right. I actually gotta can I riff on Paul George?
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Yeah.
By, and maybe it's I'm becoming old.
Sure.
And like I'm old man on a stoop now.
Uh-huh.
But like the number one player that every young kid between the ages of 10 and like 30, that's like 30, like 25,
basketball player of all time,
is that Paul George is what they want to be, the greatest. And I'm like, wait,
well,
what happened?
You know what happened?
Paul George is okay.
He was David going against the Heatles Goliath, is what he was when kids were growing up. That's exactly what it was.
I guess, but most of those kids were like, and like the previous generations were all like, oh, I'm a big Kobe guy, or I'm a big Iverson guy.
So Kobe was in the second half.
But Paul George is like.
So I have the exact answer. So Paul George was ascending while Kobe was
white
descending.
bread.
Not only that, but also
it's very boring.
If you're non-athletic, your GOAT is Steph Curry. Okay, because he's everything you wish you could do. Because Steph is deceptively athletic. But
the thing is, though, I'm not sure if that's even true, because like so many kids, there's the smallest amount of me that's like, kids have accepted that Steph Curry is one of one.
Everybody's still.
And I've seen a lot of people being like, well, I could be a Paul George.
I don't think, dude. Paul George
I could be 6'7". I could kind of do some post things. I can kind of control the ball.
Freaky athletic, like what? Like Paul George, by the way, crazy. It's weird.
But I'm talking about in the microcosm of high-end basketball prospects.
I understand.
It's a weird world. But
what's funny about Paul George is, to kids growing up and kids that are like in their teenage years or like getting into the NBA, he's way overrated. But I feel like for the average fan, he's underrated. It's very weird. It's a very weird dynamic. But anyway, the Russell Westbrook has a player option. It's like a $3-4 million player option. Not sure if he's going to sign that. I wouldn't be surprised.
I do not know what the Clippers are. The Clippers are. I think Harden probably tries to sign back unless he goes like ring chasing.
Where would he even go? Like, what team needs a facilitating point guard that, like, the Magic? Is he really going to go to Magic? Like, no. Ruin their chemistry. Like,
and it's close to Atlanta.
Yeah, I know. Magic City. I know. It's exactly where he wanted to go.
That's not a 0% chance.
I know.
Though he is an LA kid. I could see him staying with the Clippers. I could see him if the Lakers use the D'Angelo money on him.
They could.
I could also see him being a mid-level extension guy. I don't know really what his value is to any team.
I think his value is too high because he's. I don't know. Does he get like a strange 15, case? 20 million?
Like if he hadn't blown up the 76ers, I'd say
that was a great spot for him too, and he blew it up.
Yeah, if he didn't do that, but there's no way that's happening.
Yeah,
there's no way he goes to.
He doesn't go to Boston, Denver.
He could also the sad thing is he could just be one of those cases of a franchise that just says, we've got a lot of cap space and we're bad. Do you want a shitload of money to chuck up
There's
a
not a lot of
shitload of
those
things.
teams anymore. The closest team to that is Portland, right? But you don't want to ruin
Yeah, he wouldn't go to
Shaden Sharp's
Portland.
development. He wouldn't go to Detroit. Like, he wouldn't go. Oh my God, that man is going to be a Washington Wizard. That man is
He
going to be a
could.
Washington Wizard. It's going to be
If
disgusting.
if he wanted to just make money, he could go to Toronto or Washington.
So the biggest thing,
Orlando we'll talk about later, which is a possible, though I think there's a certain monk-based action fighter from Sacramento who's
yeah,
more likely to go to Orlando
yeah,
for that team, who needs just shooting. Plus, to be fair, I don't really want Paulo Bencaro to be in strip clubs.
I
We
don't
don't
either.
need that.
I
We don't
don't.
need that.
One of the biggest Clippers potential pending free agents in 2025 is Tyronn Lue. So he's got 1 year left on his deal as the head coach. There's all the rumors swirling that they're trying to extend him right now because the Lakers want to try and get him and all these things.
I think if LeBron stays, he probably follows LeBron.
Probably, but
Oh, I don't know if he still has 1 year left in his contract. I guess there's probably buyouts or something
yeah, there's something
funky.
they
I don't know. I don't know coaches' contracts. I can do. I can BS some other things, but coaching contracts,
can't do it.
I got no clue there.
So we'll see. Inevitably, the Clippers are going to fail next year. Kawhi's going to be healthy until the playoffs. Be injured again, who knows? Moving on.
Though, do they open their new
New stadium
building
next
next year?
year. Yes, which is why
It's
people think they're going to re-sign Harden because they can overpay for him because they want people in their seats.
it is a really nice
Yeah, but
stadium. So
moving on. Next up is the Phoenix Suns, an absolute disaster class in round one. Got absolutely swept out of the way by the new guard that is the Minnesota Timberwolves. That Rudy Gobert trade looking better and better every day. Um, the Phoenix Suns, not only are they in the second apron, they are screwed. So they've got their big three signed for at least, I believe every single person in their big three is signed for at least 3 years. That's Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal has a strict no trade clause to every single team in the entire league. So if he does not want to go somewhere, he will not go. I thought that trade was terrible when it happened. I think it's worse now. Not like I think DeAndre Ayton's a great player, but he I hate Bradley Beal. I don't think he's a good fit. I don't think he produces for winning basketball. Um,
yeah, DeAndre Ayton is such a weird case because like I'd probably rather have him still than Bradley Beal, but Ayton was in such a weird. Another kid I covered multiple times. Got a little prima donna in him,
yep,
more than you'd expect.
yep.
Stuff like he blew off Mark Spears when I was with Mark Spears, and he was just kind of like,
He's just
I
a
don't
guy.
really,
Yeah.
I ain't feeling. I'm like, okay, I guess, man, but like I get blown off me. Okay, like I'm just a Bay Area journalist, but like that's one of the top journalists in the entire country, dude. Like, and you're just gonna be like, I'm too big for you. It's
No,
like,
don't get me wrong. I do not want him on their team. Also, the Suns completely mismanaged this. Start dating back to when they picked DeAndre Ayton. Because first of all, they could have picked Luca. First of all, I don't blame them for taking DeAndre Ayton. He better fit their scheme. I don't know, like the Luca Booker fit is kind of weird. It's the same as him and Kyrie. It's kind of weird, whatever. But the biggest problem they did,
you still just take Luca.
I know, but the
But
biggest,
that's the Kings more worse
yeah,
than the
that's true,
Suns.
Marvin Bagley.
Yeah.
The biggest,
Woohoo.
the biggest thing is they mismanaged the timeline because what they did was they did not trade DeAndre Ayton before he hit restricted free agency, which meant the
Yeah.
Pacers signed him to that massive deal. They felt like they had to match to retain the asset. He deteriorated in terms of his willingness to really give A for effort if he had a willingness to do that in the first place, and then you end up in this situation. So I I don't know where the Suns go from here. Almost everybody on their bench is a free agent. Eric Gordon has a player option for 3 or 4 million. Again, he's the kind of player that I wouldn't be surprised if he opts out, gets the mid-level maybe, ends up somewhere on a contender, just providing, buckets off the bench like he's done for
Oh,
seemingly the last
I
decade.
think it's the opposite. I think he just goes vet minimum.
Really?
He just signs. He's the like eighth piece on some team's bench.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like
Oh
he
yeah.
could be. Am I overrating
Like
Eric
well,
Gordon? That's probably happening.
I think you're thinking of Eric Gordon of like 2-3 years ago.
Okay. Maybe his play's
Um,
deteriorated.
so the biggest thing for the Suns is their owner slash GM slash everything is a little bit of a crazy guy.
Yeah, and he
He's
wants
got
to
a lot
win.
of money. He wants to win, and he has adamantly said, we're running it back because he's crazy. But he basically just said, hey, our Kevin Durant and Booker and Beal just need to play better, and then we'll win. And it's like, okay,
I've got a
that's
crazy concept for you.
strange.
Okay, you talk.
Go ahead. I've got some other things, but go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm gonna try an NBA trade machine where I end up with KD on the Clippers, involving a sign and trade with James Harden, because Harden, right? The big thing they missed, right? One of the key problems they had
Isn't
was,
that just Bradley Beal's position though?
okay. So right now, Beal's playing the 3, and it's really gross. Or no, Beal's playing the 2. So Booker's
He's
playing
probably playing the
point.
two. Yeah,
Booker's playing
Booker's playing
point.
point.
Okay, so it's Booker playing point, Beal at the 2. It's like,
They got two combo guards, is what they
yeah,
got.
it's
So
it's
yeah.
Grayson Allen or Royce O'Neal playing the 3, KD at the 4, Nurkic at the 5. So it's
Not Bol?
that guy's a free agent.
I
Shaq could
know.
sign him. Shaq could sign him. Shaq find a way.
Gotta get that Bol.
I don't know. I don't know.
Um,
I don't think KD's on this team start of next year. That's my bold take on this team.
I
I don't think he's
what
happy. I think he's gonna ask out because he's Kevin Durant and that's all he does.
what I think they'll do is they're gonna go into the season
Yeah.
at the second apron. They're basically not going to sign any of these players if they're free agents because they really can't. They're going to get more vet minimum guys,
Minimums. Yep.
and they're going to test out the first 3 months of the season and go, are we better? And if they're not better, then he'll be the trade. They'll do what the Nets were forced to do, and they'll do a midseason trade to whoever wants to be the, hey, do you have valuable assets and just want to go ham? Like a good example would be, let's say someone's next year is going all in. Maybe I don't think he would go there, but like Orlando or like one of these teams that has some cap space, or the 76ers, or any of these teams that could have an asset that you say, hey, the Suns realized we actually do need to blow this up. It's right by the trade deadline. They're officially giving up. Now he's available. I don't think he'll be available this summer, especially with they don't get charged the penalty for being over the second apron until the end of the season. So if they dip below
They're
by
okay.
the end of next season, they
Yeah.
don't get absolutely railed
Okay. So
by
I've
that
got the trade.
entire second apron system, especially with they can't buy picks, they can't do trades with money, they can't do trades with over the cap or anything.
It's awful.
It's bad.
It's awful.
A lot of people don't understand how bad that's like. There's going to be massive amount of trades this summer
Just
and
to get
just
away from it.
movement
Yep.
for people who want to get, especially like the Clippers are one, the Warriors are one.
I have a trade in place. I'm fixing the Warriors and the Suns. Are you ready? Kevin Durant, Damian Lee, and Eric Gordon to make the money work get sent to the Warriors. The Warriors send Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga. It's the worst trade of all time. But I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. You've done it.
I mean,
I also think with the Suns, their massive issue is they don't control, not own, but they don't control
picks, right?
Their first round pick until 2030. That doesn't mean they don't have first round picks. It's just that pick is going to be at the the 30th overall, or like 25th, 27th.
Well, hold on.
5 years straight.
Daniel, but they trade Kevin Durant basically and nobody else, right? Because Lee didn't play last year. Eric Gordon, he's fine.
You could trade Booker.
But hold on. They would then have a starting lineup where you play Draymond at the small ball 5, and you play Booker, Beal, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond Green.
Yes, but I also don't think the Warriors go anywhere near that with a 10-foot pole. Because the thing is, though,
but then they get off the Andrew Wiggins contract.
But do keep in mind that the Andrew Wiggins contract is a incredible negative asset
Yeah, but I
Um,
think Jonathan Kuminga and Draymond work better on the Suns because that's what they need. They need more talent at more
uh,
positions. They need athleticism. You get it with Kuminga, like, and
I
obviously there
still
could
don't.
be picks involved. I don't know what the
I still don't think the. I think the Warriors are much more likely to say uh, goodbye Clay and then goodbye Draymond, even if Draymond forcibly removes himself from the situation. I think
the problem is who do you trade Draymond to if it's not someone like because you want to
I
trade Draymond to a team that's trying to win.
I also don't think Draymond's getting traded.
So what do they do with him?
They're just keeping him.
No, but you said goodbye Draymond. You said goodbye Clay, goodbye Draymond.
Uh I was just saying goodbye Clay.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Cause I don't think I think the Warriors are we'll get to them later, but I think that team is
they have so many ways they can go.
they
That
they
team
have
they
an
can do
infinite
whatever they
amount of
want.
options, but also they
No
really
options at all.
don't
Yeah,
because
because the money.
the Chris Paul and unless they want to pay the money. If they're fine absolutely getting destroyed by the second Akram, they can do a lot of things. But they spent I think it's like 475 million to not make the playoffs this year. And I don't
No,
care how much Joe Lacob doesn't care like he wants to win so he'll pay it, but
at some
not
point.
making the playoffs and spending more than the
You know what's
Oakland
interesting?
Athletics will pay in the next decade for a baseball team is impressive to
You know
not
what's
make the
funny?
playoffs.
Chris Paul's deal isn't that bad anymore. It's a 1 year, $30 million deal. That's a movable contract. Like that
It's
was
well,
a gargantuan
it's a
deal before.
movable contract if you're not what's the best way to put it?
Just ship him to the Spurs. Get him out of here.
Well, yeah, I'm saying from the standpoint of the second apron, because if they bring in someone with the same money value, they're still in the same situation of, hey, you have to get rid of Clay and you have to get rid of
Hold on, I have another
Wiggins,
deal.
which probably means giving up first round picks to get rid of Wiggins' contract.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on from the disaster that is the Phoenix Suns. Let's move on to another disaster, the New Orleans Pelicans. They also got swept in round one, this time by the first seed Oklahoma City Thunder.
I don't think
Um,
this is as much as a disaster as the Suns, though, and I'm not sure
I
if it's a
just,
disaster.
I
I
just
think
feel
it's
like the,
more.
the Pelicans are stuck in the middle, as they have been for like a
I
decade.
think the Pelicans are kind of like um they're a little bit like the Minnesota Timberwolves of like 2 years ago of they're either gonna put it together, i.e. the Timberwolves, or they're they're just gonna kind of be Portland of 3 years ago, where Portland realized, oh, we aren't good enough to get past where we want to be. And the thing is though, New Orleans may be one of those franchises where making the playoffs each year or like once every couple years, that may just be fine. I don't know how New Orleans operates. They've never been a franchise that's really like we have to win or
Sure.
like um I've talked to their GM uh a couple times when he was out he lived in Sonoma
Is
for
he
a
the
few
former
years.
Cavs GM,
Yeah.
David Griffin?
Yeah. He worked. He was on the board of a basketball academy out here for a little bit before he took that
Sure.
job. So I there, but they've also admitted he was very frank in his exit interview of this season, being like, "I've seen enough. This congruent of players is not correct,"
Doesn't
which
work.
is why I think that it's not 1,000%. I'm not gonna like sell the mortgage on it, but like Brandon Ingram will not be a part of this team in 2024.
Yeah, so
I don't think he's going to be there. And then they have a lot of that like interesting assets
they
like
do.
Trey Murphy. I wouldn't personally trade him, but then also you have to be like, how much money is he going to? Because I don't know how long that McCollum deal is. That's going to start looking ugly.
I think it's still
Um,
got a couple years on it because I don't see them on through the 2025 list. So
and the problem is they probably can't trade him. It's um but
I
I would
mean, the
keep
answer
Trey
is
Murphy
trading.
over him.
You just
But
trade Zion to the Thunder, and then you're good. Just trade Zion to the Thunder. Give them the
The thing is
4,
though, the Thunder eventually will make one of these trades to like let's say they lose in the Western Conference Finals this year
which is likely.
to whoever comes out of Milwaukee or Minnesota and Denver.
I don't know if they make it past Mavericks, to be honest.
I think Luka's knee will.
Is he injured?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh no, his knee's been like shredded for like a month. He's basically just like
Probably not long
painkillers
life.
and cigarettes.
Okay.
And you're like, Luka, you're back.
Yeah, Jesus.
But I think Oklahoma they're I know we're talking about the Pelicans who beat the or were beaten by the Oklahoma City Thunder, but I think the Thunder have to figure out because they can just throw around assets, but you have to figure out
Yeah.
what part of your team you want to shed to get one of those like third level stars, or like they
I mean, the
don't need to
answer's
trade. They don't need to trade for a superstar. Like, yes, you could trade for Durant or something silly,
no. You just
but
trade for like a quality 3-and-D wing to go with Dort, or you really trade for a 4, right? Because they
you'd
have
probably trade Dort. But um,
really.
I from what I've gathered from like poking around Oklahoma City Twitter, he does a lot like when he's on national TV or he has those like huge defensive moments. Like everyone's like, "Oh my god, Dort's the best." But like, there's a lot of times he does that, like Billy Hill, like or not Billy Hill, Billy Heel, yeah, butchering everything. He just likes to chuck things sometimes, and he'll
Oh,
just like throw the ball, and you'll be like, "Why did
I
we
have
just
seen him
lose 8 points for
randomly
no
chuck
reason?"
3-pointers. Yeah. I mean, if you trade Dort and Giddy and like 17 first-round picks, that'll get you just about any player in the league. So like,
I think they need an Aaron Gordon, not Aaron Gordon, but they need their Aaron Gordon.
no, bring Paul George back.
They could.
Like,
It's
so
not
you play.
unheard of.
So you'd play what? You'd play. What spot does J-Dub play? I always forget. He's just so good. He just plays because he just fits in everywhere. Okay, so they have
Uh,
J-Dub listed as a power forward.
that
Okay,
makes
so
sense.
yeah, so you play. Well, you'd have to figure out who you're playing at the 2, but I feel like getting a shooting guard in today's NBA isn't hard. You just play
That's not hard.
SGA. You play someone. You play Paul George, J-Dub, Chet. It's pretty good. You could even
Also,
can
I
you play
think
you can play PG at the 2, right? So trade
I
for
think
Zion, trade for Paul George, and you're done. And
shush
you're
shush
done.
shush 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 shush.
So anyway, back to the Pelicans. Biggest
True.
pending free agent is Jonas Valanciunas, who honestly I haven't kept up for recently, but I really liked it a couple of years ago. He just felt like a
Yeah.
quality center that
It's a
just
very
everything right,
strange trade by the Pelicans where
where
they
they
picked
traded
him
Steven
up.
Adams. Yeah,
Oh, not that, but they just kind of they just I think if they can bring him back on the cheap, you do it,
yeah,
but
agreed.
I also wouldn't be surprised if he just like randomly ends up in Philadelphia or something,
I
or
hope he,
like
depending on how much money he commands, I hope he's a warrior. Oh my God, they can actually have some size for once in their life instead
I
of
I fully
unplayable Dario Saric.
I fully expect the Warriors will sign zero free agents. That I don't think there's because of their cap situation, they cannot sign anyone.
For the record, they
Um,
could trade Chris
unless
Paul,
unless he wants a vet minimum, but
which
I
that's
don't
what I'm
think he
wondering.
wants a vet
I don't think
minimum.
so. But for the record, they could trade Chris Paul to the Magic for cash considerations. Just letting you know, because they have so much cap space on the Magic. Anyway, let's not talk about the Pelicans. I don't think the Pelicans are going to be newsworthy until they trade Brandon Ingram, and then we'll talk about them more. So let's go to the East.
Yep. See you, Pelicans.
So over in the
Yeah.
East, the 1-8 matchup, Jimmy Butler is out, which means this series didn't matter. Boston took a gentleman's sweep 4-1. Jimmy Butler is the one player that sources around the league, I've seen all over Twitter and all over social media. There's rumors that Miami is essentially saying, hey, I think we're going to, hitch our wagon to Bam Adebayo and maybe move Jimmy Butler. Now, for context, Butler's got a player option after this year, so he's signed for at least 1 year and then has the option to stay for an additional year. A lot of their players have player options. They have like literally 10 players with player options, including the likes of Caleb Martin, Kevin Love, others. Um, the Heat are the single weirdest team in the whole league, and I don't think it's close.
It's not
They
entirely wrong.
they coast during the regular season, um, which I think is okay. But then they make the playoffs and they usually turn it on. But obviously Jimmy Butler got hurt, I believe, in the play-in game. I believe. I think they were playing
Something like that,
Atlanta
yeah.
potentially, um, and he got hurt, and obviously they weren't the same since. Um, Now they're in a weird spot, right? Because Butler's obviously a great player, more specifically during the playoffs, but this was his worst year. He was hurt consistently. He was obviously bad during the regular season, and you didn't get playoff Jimmy because he didn't play. Um, so my question to you is, do they trade Jimmy Butler or do they just kind of run it back?
I think the biggest problem with trading Jimmy Butler outside of his fantastic emo
Haircuts.
hairdo on
Yeah.
ESPN.com.
Yep.
God, it's just I want to see what he comes with next year.
I
That's
don't.
truly. Is he's making 45 million a year.
But it's kind of a 1 year deal.
It is a 1 year deal, but like there's not many teams that can be like, yes, we want to what is it, 34-year-old shoot first playoff coffee based
Mid-range
all-star.
mid-range
Um
jumper. Like at that point, you probably just signed DeMar DeRozan if you want a similar player. Although obviously Jimmy's better on defense.
exactly.
But
Or trade for Donovan Mitchell or a whole bunch of shenanigans. I think Jimmy Butler will play out the rest of his contract on the Heat unless a team gets incredibly desperate for some reason. Like I could see Jimmy Butler next season being a mid-season trade to like the Spurs or something, where the Spurs are just like, we have money, let's go get a 1 year piece if Victor's finally ascended into
sure,
godlyhood, which he
which
probably will unless
already
he gets
has.
hurt.
Yeah,
He's close already.
he's so
Um,
good.
and just like you look at the Western Conference and you go like, who's not making the playoffs? Because you probably give the Spurs another 1 year of like, hey,
Figuring it out.
Victor, you
Yeah,
can not have expectations, do all these crazy things. Our roster sucks. Next year, 2025, now we're going to be a problem. And for the Heat, especially, like, if you can trade Jimmy Butler, cool. There's not many teams that I
like
like,
makes sense.
unless you just do like, oh, let's do a swap with
Mm.
Harden and things with the Clippers or something
Or like
silly.
Milwaukee for like Chris Middleton and stuff. Like
I
it's
don't.
just
I don't
awkward.
even think they do that. Like
I don't think so either. It's
I
just
don't.
really
It
awkward.
really feels like there's no option for Jimmy Butler.
So
He's just kind of there.
the problem with Jimmy too is he's so clearly not aligned with the timeline of the Heat, right? So Bam Adebayo is 26, Jaime Hawkins is 23, and Jovic is 20. Tyler Hero's on
Tyler
the young side too. So
24. Yeah.
and then they randomly have Terry Rozier on the roster for God knows what reason. Even though I wasn't a big hater of that when they did it because they didn't trade a lot. Um, yeah, I mean I think the question is what do you do with Butler? I think they're going to be an interesting team to monitor because they do have so many players on player options that their whole team could look different. But I think this team's weird. I think this team will be good as long as they have Spolstra, but unless they make a major move, I don't think they're making headway next year. Um, Next up is Orlando. Orlando lost as of today a game 7 against Cleveland. Um, Key free agents include Markel Fultz is a free agent. Gary Harris, former Denver Nugget great, free agent. Jonathan Isaac is going to be an unrestricted free agent after next year, and he's the weirdest player. He's just so weird.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they just like trade dump him just
I
from like
I think that happens.
for a team like the Lakers or someone who's just like we can control his weirdness and then no
The
one can control his
Warriors.
weirdness because he's weird.
Okay, so what the Magic need. First of all, great season for the Magic, by the way. Great season. They made the
Yep.
playoffs. They were competitive in round 1. Paolo Banchero's a star. He looks great. Um, I think actually, no, I like the Warriors. I get it. Jonathan Isaac for Chris Paul. and stuff might make sense because they get a veteran presence. Their only vet on that team is like Joe Ingles. Like they don't really have a vet. You can help, Chris Paul can help Anthony Black develop, um, a member of the greatest jersey swap of all time. And
Shout out.
I think there's a lot of, I don't think there's a lot to talk about with Orlando because I think they just had a good season. I think the only
I
thing that you can talk about is that they could add some pieces because they do have some cap space before extensions for Wagner and Paolo kick in.
the biggest thing with watching the Orlando Magic this year, because as every IPA hipster know, you gotta watch the true hipster stuff, and that's the Orlando Magic this year, or like that series in general. It was on like
Series.
NBA TV half the time or something.
Yeah.
Like no one watched that series. It was probably the there was sweeps that probably had more viewership than that 7-game series. It was no one cared about Orlando and Cleveland because it's Orlando and Cleveland. That's understandable because it's Orlando and Cleveland. Um, I think that the Orlando Magic were like they're they need shooting.
Yeah.
They were painful to watch. It was very much like where the Philadelphia 76ers and the New York Knicks were like two crabs with knives fighting.
Yeah.
Orlando and
Or two rats just trying to get a piece of cheese.
we're like a ball of like just sadness, and like no one can score. Like even people who really love defense were just like, I hope one of you guys both lose. Like there's no offense. You put one or two scorers on that team and they're having a good time. There's been a heavy link between the Orlando Magic's fascination with Klay Thompson, where you could be like, oh, veteran leadership. He's not going to rock a locker room. He's chill. I would say there's some maybe legalization laws in the state of Florida, which could perhaps prohibit such a move.
He could be on a boat. He could
could
still
be on
ride
a
his boat.
He can find himself a lake
Yep.
in Orlando. Though it's one of those things where people are like, oh, they could offer him the 2 years, $48 million that was floated out that the Warriors had offered him preseason.
Well, no one's going to offer him that.
Well, that's what the Warriors before the season offered Klay.
Yeah,
was a 2-year, $48 million deal.
Which you should have taken.
Or 48. I can't remember if it was 48. It wasn't 48.
It should be 48 total. No, it should be 48 total. That makes sense. 24 a year.
Yeah.
That's not terrible.
Which was seen as an insult before the season, which now seems
I feel
bad.
like he could get 2 years, 30.
I think it's going to come down to years. I could see him wanting a third year. So it's like, the thing is though, let's say the Warriors are offering only 2 years, $20 million each. Yeah. But then Orlando goes 3 years, 33.
Yeah.
And then, so it's $100 million contract. You go to a young team on the rise in a worse conference.
We sign and trade him so we get Jonathan Isaac. I just want a tall dude on this team. Is that so bad? I just want a tall dude. Sorry,
You will take.
I will take Boban and I will like it. I don't care. I don't care. Just give me a tall player. I'm so sick of this.
You'll take 6'4" and you will like it.
I know, it's crazy.
I think the Orlando Magic should throw the bag at Malik Monk from Sacramento. Doesn't have the money to sign him. Yes, he's friends with Fox. They're very good friends from college. That really worked in Sacramento. But if it's a position between Malik Monk and Klay in their current states, not a few years ago. Like a few years ago, I'm taking Klay. Even last year, I'm probably taking Klay.
Well, the good thing about Klay compared to him, the thing about Klay compared to him is he does have obviously Monk is a veteran at this point, but Klay is more of a vet with the late run playoff experience.
Much more playoff experience. But it's also, do you expect Orlando to be in the Eastern Conference Finals next year if they get shooters? And the answer is,
but don't forget, one of the Magic's weird things is they have an overabundance of guards. Now, obviously, Gary Harris and Markelle Fultz probably out the door, which clears some minutes up. But Klay can play the 3 and has played the 3 basically all year this year. So he does give you some position
Well,
versatility.
he played the 2 this year, but he guarded the 4 is what he did.
Oh God, it's so gross. It's
Yeah,
so
he
gross the
cannot.
way the Warriors have to play.
Well, no, that's also because that's how he can't guard quick guards anymore.
Yeah,
So
he doesn't have the first step
he
anymore,
forced himself to have to guard as a power forward.
which is just
Because Wiggins can guard down.
Draymond,
Kaminga
Draymond.
is
Kaminga's weird.
Kaminga's Kaminga.
Yeah, he can guard anybody if
Which
he
we'll
cares.
we'll get that when we have a seat at the bar. We'll talk
Yeah.
about Jonathan Kaminga because
All right, that's
I'm
plenty of time
confused
on
with
it.
that boy.
That's enough for the teams in
Oh,
Florida. Let's move over.
Orlando, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Mickey Mouse ring.
Huh?
Let's move on to the Milwaukee Bucks, who arguably with the Suns had the biggest disaster of a season. They lost in 6 to the Pacers. Now, don't get me wrong, the Pacers are a good team. They traded for Siakam halfway through the year. They've got Tyrese Halliburton doing his thing, although he's been way worse at shooting ever since he came off his injury. They've got a ton of role-playing free agents. So, for example, Patrick Beverley, who should probably never dribble a basketball professionally in the USA ever again,
It'd be
should
nice.
as a free agent. Jay Crowder is a free agent. Danilo Gallinari is a free agent. Thanasis is a free agent, the biggest free agent out on the market.
Ooh.
In 2025, they got Brooke Lopez, who's going to have an expiring contract. And they've also got Bobby Portis and Chris Middleton, who both have player options after this year.
Put
So
some respect on Ty Washington's name.
I will not. And as it works with Milwaukee, obviously partway through the year, they fired Adrian Griffin. They hired Doc Rivers because they have no concept of the proper thing to do. And this team just feels off. I mean, you look at the team, it's good on paper. They traded for Damian Lillard this offseason. So you've got Dame, Middleton, Lopez, Portis, Giannis. They've got, I think they have Malik Beasley right now, doing some 3-and-D stuff for them.
Yeah, he's a free agent.
No, he's a free agent? Okay. I
I think
don't know where Milwaukee goes from here. I really don't.
I don't think Milwaukee does anything. I think Milwaukee goes, this is the team we've put together.
Giannis is hurt,
It did
obviously.
really, really well until like before they fired Griffins.
Yeah.
They were one of the top outside of Boston. They were the second best team in the East.
Yeah, let's fire our
Um,
coach. Jesus.
well, that's clearly because also the former Portland coach left like in
Like a
training
week
camp or
before.
something, like
Yeah.
resigned. It was very, very, very obvious
That there was
the
some conflict.
players, or at least one of their 2 stars, did not get along with the coach, and they basically said, "We are going to
Pick the players over
inject
coach.
this year."
Yeah.
Because like I still think in a weaker conference with everyone doing all this rearrangements, you don't have to worry about the tax with Milwaukee right now. You're not losing anyone important in free agency.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
run it back. You figure out this entire offseason, are we keeping Doc? I don't think they should. They
I don't think so
probably
either.
will.
Yep.
What I think Milwaukee is going to be doing is 2024 is Doc the mistake? 2025 they'll have a new coach. 2025 is when they'll be a superstar contender. I don't think that Milwaukee is as much of an issue. I think they had I think the biggest actual interest is, hey, are Giannis's knees and Achilles intact?
I need you to pronounce that
Yes.
name properly.
What?
Giannis.
Giannis.
There's no J. It's Giannis. It's like when Jokic, when somebody call him Nikola, and he just like looks up at them and is like, somebody said my name right. Like it's not Nicola. Like, oh my god.
Eastern Europeans.
I know.
I don't think there's much to talk on Milwaukee because I think they're just gonna run it back. I'm not worried about them at all.
I don't think they should run it back, but I think they will. Okay, last series. Arguably, and by arguably I mean I don't think there's any competition, the best series of round one. The New York Knickerbockers coming away victorious 4-2 in a 6-game series over the 76ers. Obviously, Joel Embiid was dealing with not only some lower extremity injuries, he also had some temporary paralysis in his face that he had been dealing with.
Oh yeah, Embiid. If it wasn't the playoffs, Embiid wouldn't be playing for the
Would
next
not be
like 3
playing.
months.
So now, full disclosure, you are a Philadelphia 76ers fan.
It's true.
Joel Embiid is my least favorite player in the league, and it's not close. His his continued effort to flop and his like complaining, things like that. Now, don't get me wrong. I love his when he's a showman and when he's like playing well and is like
Uh-huh.
playing to the crowd. I love that. I'm all about that. That's cool. Like I got no problem with that. But just the way he flops around as a huge man getting pushed over by guards apparently, and the way he pulled on Mitchell Robinson when he was like on the ground, he could have injured him. I think he did at one point injure somebody doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't love it. Now, for the 76ers as a whole, almost their entire team is a free agent. You got Nick Batum, Buddy Hield, um, Kelly Oubre, who really wasn't the same after he got hit by a car, Kyle Lowry, all this stuff. And the other one is Maxey is a restricted free agent who obviously will be staying with the team and will get a lot of
Yeah.
money.
When it comes to the 76ers, I there's a good chance this team will look more different than most teams
Yep.
just because they've got before signing Maxi, which will probably be a what is it, 45-50 million dollar player.
Yeah.
They've got an extra like 15-20 million to throw around. Especially with like Lowry's deal coming off and a whole bunch of other crap. Um, I think this team will look drastically different. I I think Philadelphia will always go. They have their 2-star lineups. They have the guard. They have that he is him point guard. They're like a bad version of Denver, and
Sure.
like where you've got the star MVP center, but then if I'm having someone taking a shot at the end of a game in a playoff series,
I
I'm
kind of want it to
probably
be
having Tyron
Maxey.
Maxey
Yeah.
or Murray taking that shot just because they seem to have that
His shot with 10
Where
seconds left.
Tatum or a couple other players seem to like we don't know if they have that like internal like switch, like that dog switch where they just be
Maxey's got it.
like where Ant Edwards, we cannot deny that dude,
He's that dude.
he got that dog in him. You know,
Yeah.
he's going to take, there's going to be multiple times during his career where he's going to take a playoff series and he is going to just single-handedly out destroy. He is going to sink every battleship, an entire fleet, and then move on to the next round.
Yep.
And I think Maxi has the potential to be one of those type of players. They just have to get the correct things around them. And the East is winnable. The East is like Boston will probably find some way to mess this up. Even if they make the finals, it's just kind of what
I just
Boston
can't
does.
believe in them until they do it.
Um,
Like I've
it's
just lost all
and
faith.
it's the same thing with like the Knicks, where it's just like my entire life, the Knicks have been a punchline, a joke.
They had 1 year in like 2010 or 12 or something where it was like Melo and Amari and maybe
Even
Tyson
yeah,
Chandler and stuff. And
but
even then,
like,
you were like,
it's still the Knicks.
I know.
It's still, it's still just like a hee hee ha ha organization. And I think the 76ers are going to do something drastic. I don't know if it's going to be good,
I think it's gonna be Paul
but
George. That makes
my
the most sense.
Paul George makes a lot of sense if Paul George wants to leave Southern California. The problem is he's a
Oh,
Palmdale kid.
he's from Southern
He's
California.
local. Put that in air quotes, but he's local to Los Angeles.
I mean, he lived in Indiana and made it work. Like,
Yeah, but he also aggressively got out of Indiana quickly.
hey, he liked
Um,
OKC a little bit. I mean, a little bit to the
but
point where he could sign with them and make them title
I
contenders 2
also
years
Paul George is one of those weird cases where like if you could tell me you get 2 years of Paul George,
later. Yeah.
I'd be a lot more excited than, oh, we just signed Paul George to a
Oh, it'll be
5-year
a 4 year.
contract.
Yeah, it'll be a 4 year deal.
And the
So,
problem is, I think those last couple years of that contract are going to be atrocious.
Siakam fit on that team?
Huh?
Does Siakam fit on that team?
Yes, if they want to.
Makes
I
some
think he
sense.
works very well, but there's also a decent chance that he just we haven't heard any rumblings of he's going to leave Indiana.
Yeah.
So I
Oh,
wouldn't be
also,
surprised the second their season ends that oh, they just announced a Siakam contract
yeah.
is probably what's going to
What's
happen.
also interesting is keep in mind Buddy Hield is a free agent for Orlando as well. So if they need a shooter, someone that can light it up, he could play like the 2 or the 3. I
I
think I think Buddy Hield makes some sense.
I don't know where Buddy Hield what his money point is.
I don't
I
either.
think shooting always pays, but there's a difference between an 82 game player and a 16 game player.
So for the record,
Buddy Hield is not a 16 game player. It's the
Wow,
same thing with D'Angelo Russell.
Buddy
It's
Hield
not
was
a 16
making
game player.
$28.9 million this year.
Ugh.
Holy moly! Holy
It's
crap.
frustrating because he's probably still going to get 20.
Oh, he'll get 20 to 25 now. 22 maybe.
Oh, I hate that. It's
Yeah,
gross.
yeah. I hate that. Which means the Magic makes sense because they're one of the teams with cap space. Let's transition. Let's go to the bar. The bar,
Yeah.
also known as the Bay Area recap. First and foremost, the Giants are not great. They're 15-19. As we said last episode, Blake Snell hit the IL. Patrick Bailey just hit the IL.
Do you want to learn a hot fact?
Go ahead.
Who has the most errors in all of baseball?
Is it really? That's surprising.
No. Individual player.
Matt Chapman?
Yes.
Really? Wow. What's he playing? Is he playing third base?
He's playing only third base.
Okay.
A lot of them have been like.
Can we not put him at DH? Who's our DH? It's the kid
Well,
we
no,
signed. Hilaire, right?
he was brought in for defense. Solaire's going to be the DH, but the Giants are a very weird team. Locally, when it comes to they brought in all these free agents. You look at this team and you're like, they are better than last year's team,
And yet they're not.
and yet they're not. But the thing is that like pitching,
Sick.
better.
It's good.
Bullpen. They've got a
Pretty good.
couple clunkers where they keep trying to use a 7 foot like 3 dude. He's like 6'8", but
Their main bullpen guys are like Rogers and Duvall, right?
Rogers, Duvall, a Walker. They've got like 5 or 6 like nails, dude. And then they got a couple guys that are kind of floaty.
Mhm.
Like one example is they have one pitcher who he does awfully, he pitches poorly, he is not consistent, he doesn't do well, except for against one opponent. The last 3 years, he's been like the best pitcher in baseball.
What,
Can
the
you guess which
Padres or
team that was
something?
against? It was against only Bob Melvin's Padres. He was like had like a .79 ERA in 15 appearances, and otherwise he has a 7 ERA. He only dumpsters the Padres, and he's like 6'8", and he just throws just absolute just. There you go. You want to bomb it, and you're like, cool, great, awesome. But the Giants are weird. They're struggling hitting, aggressively struggling while hitting, especially runners in scoring positions. I think Jorge Soler is something. I think he's 3 for 33 with runners in scoring position.
Yeah.
He's hitting home runs. There's solo home runs,
yeah.
which is not great. It's like you're still like cool, but the weird thing with the Giants, and it's like we're still waiting a little while because like Bob Melvin's a lot more of a patient manager because he's more old school. Yeah. The Giants, like when you look at the metrics, they're hitting the crap out of the ball. They're just hitting it directly to people.
Team. Yeah.
Which eventually you'd be like they're using the exit velocities. They're hitting the ball really hard. It's just not going where they want it to go.
Yeah.
Which I kind of feel like you snap out of that eventually.
Yeah.
Where they feel like one of these teams that will sneak into the playoffs mainly. Though, like Susan Slusser, beat writer, Chronicle, San Francisco Chronicle, I think senior executive writer, columnist. She's been kind of not very quietly hinting, being like, what if the Giants trade for a shortstop? Like trade for an all-star shortstop because they have this huge problem of when Robbie Ray comes back and Alex Cobb comes back, and Snell,
Got like
they've got
7
an
pitchers.
7 or 8 man rotation because Wynn has been doing really well. Harrison's young; he's doing really well.
Webb.
Webb's locked in there, and
Yeah.
then Hicks, the reliever
Hicks.
turned starter, has been like lights out.
Yeah.
So you don't really want to move any of these guys. You could just package one of them,
Yeah.
and then a couple prospects, especially pitching or outfield prospects in the minors. Go get you
the
an
question
all-star
is
shortstop.
what all-star shortstops are even potentially available? Like,
You look at the Brewers, Cardinals have one. Miami, I think, still has one. They traded their second baseman to the Padres, which is why I think this is more likely to happen.
they just did that, right? Like last
They
week.
just did that this week, and I looked at the it was a really weird. The Marlins basically bought prospects,
Yeah.
where the Marlins said we will pay his entire deal, if you give us like 3 tiers higher worth of prospects, and well, like the Padres offered that, basically being like, hey, we do not want to spend money,
Yeah.
but we do not care about these prospects at all. Please take them. And Marlins said, we ain't making the their GM literally came out and said, we are unlikely to make the playoffs. So
Dude,
what's a better time than now?
just just take a bus, kidnap Fernando Tatis Jr., put him in a Giants uniform, and we're fine. Like, we're good.
I don't know about that, but
So that's your update on the Giants. I don't think they're.
we'll come back for more. We got to get those Jung Ho Lee chants. Jung Ho Lee.
I do like Jung Ho Lee. I think he's been great.
I like him a lot, but that's also, I'm a big Korean baseball fan.
That makes sense. And the last step is going to be the Warriors. As we discussed last episode, Warriors are kind of in no man's land in terms of they're one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive teams in the league. They are in a weird spot because they've been trying to navigate this dual timeline they have where they've got young players, Brandon Podziemski, Trace Jackson Davis, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, to name, just a few. At the same time that some of the old guard are potentially aging out. In particular, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins is giving you nothing. Draymond Green, and even Steph is getting up there, but obviously Steph's going to age gracefully. The question is, do you try and go all in with Steph, or do you try and get rid of your bad contracts, maybe be bad for a year, retool moving forward?
So the biggest thing for me is, what is the universal opinion of what Jonathan Kuminga could be? If you think Jonathan Kuminga is a lock to be Stephen Curry's running mate, potentially surpassing mate, in, be it not next year but the year after, and like he takes another leap forward this upcoming season, he's still only he's 22.
He's 21.
21 or 22. He's born in October, so 21. He's still only 21. You could kind of make the argument of, hey, Ant Edwards just took this like monster and they play the same kind of like Powerball, Michael Jordan, just like, I'm gonna punish you down on these. We're not gonna shoot the 3 ball, but like we're gonna punish you type of dudes. Do you think Jonathan Kuminga is that guy? If you do, then you basically say, this is your team. We're gonna strip everything else. Like, you don't resign, you decline Chris Paul's option. You
Player option, I think, right?
sign Clay to like a really low end deal, because the biggest thing is currently, for this season they have a payroll of 209 million. The second apron, death apron, is like 174 million.
Okay, so if you get rid of CP3, that's 30 million off your cap. Now, obviously, you got to take some players back, probably. But if you get off of CP3 and Clay, I think you're under the second apron.
Yes, but the problem is with that roster, you just lost in the play-in. And then
Yeah, the West is loaded.
and then that's losing the play-in with the Sacramento Kings who are going to do something, with the Spurs who are going to do something.
The
The Houston Rockets
Rockets.
are coming, and I'm probably missing another one.
Let's see.
And like, who in the playoffs right now is going to fall out of the playoffs? Maybe the Suns if they blow it up. Maybe the Lakers if they blow it up.
The
But
Grizzlies coming
unlikely.
back with Ja
There's
not being
also the
injured.
Grizzlies coming back. So if you're going to tell me that a team that loses Klay Thompson and loses Chris Paul is miraculously going to get
better,
but not just better,
they don't
but
even have
like
their first this
significantly
year,
better.
right?
And like, you could make the argument, if Draymond Green had played every game this season, they're the 4 seed or the 5 seed.
But you can't guarantee that.
But with what we've seen over the last 2 years, you can't guarantee that.
He can't control himself.
Then becomes the question of, do you take the risk of Jonathan Kuminga is the only person on this roster besides Steph, doesn't Draymond or anyone, who you could get someone you consider the second star. The Warriors need a second star. Which is like the problem is that you don't know if that tier of player is just like, hey, we got Brandon Ingram. Woo! Like, is that enough? Is Steph, Clay, Brandon Ingram, Trey Staxis, Davis, and Draymond? Is that a 6 seed in the West?
No,
it could be, but
not.
But it's like there's a lot of people have been beating the drum of just like, this franchise is Steph. Yep. Steph has more than 2 years left, but Draymond, Steve Kerr, probably Clay, probably have 2 years left. All their contracts end in 2 years. Yep. So do you maximize that 2-year window and then say goodbye to Draymond, Clay, Steve Kerr, and then Curry figures out what to do when he's like 40 or 39,
retires in Charlotte or something? Who knows?
I think when he started his career, I think he was all like, even maybe a few years ago, he's like, I'll do 1 year in Charlotte. I think he's gotten to the point where it's like, especially with LeBron, like this entire area has been about like movement. If he stays in one place, it looks a lot better. So even if it's like, I think he's the type of player who probably like disgruntledly ride it out and just be like,
probably. All right, here's the strat. You call up Masai Ujiri. You say, you know how you're collecting Canadians? I got another one for you. And you give him Andrew Wiggins.
Why wouldn't you have done that at this trade deadline?
They should have, because who they need is Jakob Poeltl. And you trade Andrew Wiggins, Moses Moody, and a first-round pick for Jakob Poeltl. Send it in.
I think I really like Pods.
Yep.
Pods is perfect for this roster of like he's the equivalent of a coach's kid. He's going to rebound like a maniac. I don't see him as an all-star. I don't see Trey Staxis Davis as an all-star, but I do see them as winning pieces on a team. I'm not sure about starters, but if I was the Warriors this year, I'm taking Jonathan Kuminga, and even if that's the other point is, I don't know if Jonathan Kuminga is like Anthony Edwards, or is he just like Danny Green in a inflatable suit?
I think if he gets the playing time, he gives a shit, he's going to be Anthony Edwards. Like, he is so insanely talented. He's 21. He's insanely talented. His like athleticism, by the way, not only does that trade work, it saves the Warriors $12.5 million in cap space. And then if they let Clay go, I think they might be under the apron at that point.
Yeah, I think they bring Clay back on a 2-year, anywhere between 20 and 30 million a year.
Yeah, it'll be a 3-year deal, and the third year is a team option. Is realistically what it's going to be.
Probably.
Although they might not want to have to make that decision of saying option.
I'm done with the Wiggins experiment. Yep. I get his thing was probably like some deep like philosophical family trauma or something, and that sucks. But at this point, like 2 years of I don't know what to do with you. Like, are
He's
you
29.
here?
He's 29 years old. I don't think he's getting better. I don't think he ever returns to the form we saw when he was by far the second best player on that championship run.
Yeah, I
I
fully
respect what he's done,
expect
but I think he's done.
Andrew Wiggins, because especially like the biggest problem with Andrew Wiggins is next year 26 million, next year 28 million, 3 years 30 million.
Nope,
That's
get
a
him out of here.
it's the problem is that you're probably gonna have to trade. Like you're gonna have to attach Moses Moody to that trade
That's what
or
I'm
a first
saying.
round pick
Yeah, that's what I'm
or
saying.
to like get like something bad, like not good, like not a Yoka Fertile, like an actual like bad piece, or like
Okay, well,
the example is like another awful contract is what you'd be bringing in.
all right, Jordan Poole, get your ass back here. Let's go.
No, no, he can be in purgatory in Washington for the
Is
rest of
there
his
is there a
life.
bad contract that's like expiring or has 1 year
Um,
less than Wiggins?
let's see here. Um, let's see. Is Gordon Hayward's contract still a thing?
Maybe. He's on OKC. Let me check.
There's Ben Simmons.
Oh, no, thank you. Nope,
There's
Gordon Hayward's going to be an unrestricted free agent.
let's
How
see what
long's
was.
Ben Simmons got on his deal? Yeah, he's an expiring. Perfect. Give me Ben Simmons. Screw it. Although I don't even think they can do that because he's making too much money. He makes more money than Wiggins because he's making $40 million.
Yep. It'd be one of those things where you're trading Kevon Looney, Andrew Wiggins, and Moses Moody for Ben Simmons. And do you know how awful that sounds? Like, that sounds.
Hold on. I'm putting on my GM hat. Hold on. Okay,
GM activated.
you ready for this?
Yeah,
Okay.
what's up?
Chris Paul on an expiring contract. Moses Moody and the Andrew Wiggins contract for Ben Simmons and a sign and trade of Nick Claxton. So the Nets get more tradable assets with smaller deals because Ben Simmons has a huge deal, right? So you trade for a $28 million contract, a $4
Uh
million contract in Moody, and CP3 on an expiring who you can absolutely flip to someone at 30 million.
huh. So it's not awful, but I could see them trading that package to Chicago for Zach LaVine.
I hate Zach LaVine as a player. I do not think he contributes to winning basketball. How much time? Wait, doesn't he have a? Isn't he on an expiring? Zach LaVine has. Oh my God, he's got 3 years, $43 million left. Please do not trade Wiggins for that. That's worse.
Well, it is worse, but it gets rid of Wiggins. And that's if you want to get rid of Wiggins.
Fine, we get rid of Wiggins, but you got to throw in Alex Caruso.
If they can get Caruso, you do that, but I'm not sure if they can get Caruso. They'd have to like what would you trade
No, the same package. Okay, the
would
same
you
package.
trade
Hold on.
Wiggins and Kuminga if it gets you Caruso and
No,
other pieces?
no, no way. Okay, the same deal works. So you trade CP3's expiring, Wiggins on the 3 year deal, and Moses Moody. You trade him to the Warriors for Zach LaVine and Alex Caruso, and that saves you $9 million this year.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think that package makes sense. Moody, Wiggins, and Chris Paul somewhere because that team gets an expiring, that team gets a young player, but we get off the Wiggins contract. So
Hmm.
so
Yeah, it's gonna be super. It's gonna be
all
super
right.
strange to figure out what they do because there's just
Billy, we're gonna trade these three players for Nicholas Batum on a 1 year deal, please. Thank you.
that's big. You could also try and see if Portland is interested in getting rid of Malcolm Brogdon.
Brogdon,
It's
yeah.
not an unheard of
I
idea.
forgot he's still on that team. How did he not get traded at the deadline? Like, what?
Portland's kind of just like stashing him.
Okay, whatever. Maybe they'll get like 2 first-round picks for him this year because somebody's desperate. Anyway, that's going to be the conclusion of episode 2 of the PTS podcast, where the Poulters talk sports.
Woo!
We'll be back next week for part 3. I imagine we'll be halfway through some NBA series by that point, so hopefully we can touch on those. And I think we will be also talking about teams that have already been eliminated from the playoffs that we did not talk about today. So we will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for joining us. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.
See y'all.